It is 4:30. I'm calling the meeting to order. I acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, Tla-o-qui-aht. Notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. A notice to virtual attendees to sign up for public comment and question period using the Q&A function in Zoom. To register, participants are required to enter their full name, residential address, and the agenda item they wish to speak to. Through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I move that pursuant to section 15 of the District of Tofino Meeting Procedure Bylaw number 1229, 2016 as amended, the February 25th, 2025 regular council meeting be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at Lakewood Sound Theatre, 380 Campbell Street in Tofino, BC. Saying no objection, that motion is carried. Also, through unanimous consent, if there is no objection, February 25, 2025 regular council agenda be adopted. No objection, that motion is carried. Also, through unanimous consent, if there is no objection, I move that the minutes of the regular council meeting held February 11th, 2025 be adopted. Objection, that motion is carried. Mayor's report. This Friday at 11:30 at USS, it'll be a celebration of BC Transit coming in to partner with West Coast Transit and take over that service. They are doubling the funds, bringing in over $600,000, if I'm not mistaken. And improving the service. It'll be moving. It'll be from early in the morning till 11 at night. So I'm really looking forward to that. And Councillor Steer and I had the pleasure of being at the West Coast Transit Working Group to be there for BC Transit representative and all the reps from the coast who put that wonderful service together. So I really look forward to seeing that come through. And it's great that BC Transit is working with West Coast Transit. Our policies where we were able to extend free service to the youth in high school, which has transformed their lives. I know. Also, it was my pleasure, Councillor Steer, to attend the King Charles III Coronation Medal ceremony. And that was our MP, Gordo, bestowed the King Charles III Coronation Medal on Levi Martin, Joe Martin, and Ricardo Manahan. Anyway, and that was great to see those three individuals from our community honored. And great to see our MP here in the community. That is all from me. We have public comment on agenda items. I've got a list here. Spell that.
Thank you very much. I will now make an open call for comments. For those in the gallery who wish to speak, please raise your hand. If there is anyone attending online via Zoom that would like to make a comment, you can do so now using the Q&A function. Before making a comment, you will need to state your name, your address, and the agenda item you are speaking to. I will now do a call, calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times. Oh, hello.
Yep. Okay, just a moment here. Just a sec. I'm just going to see. This is an online call. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got some written down here, and I'm going to see for the Zoom. Do we have people signed up on Zoom?
No one signed up on Zoom.
Okay, super. Then, Mr. Andrew Sadler, I have you as up on number 1. But before we get into it, I just do want to make a comment on public comment agenda items. We've got more people. We've got 6 people signed up here. We have 10 minutes, a maximum of 2 minutes per speaker. You don't have to take all the time, all the 2 minutes. So if you're quicker, then we can get everybody that's signed up here. And if there's still time within that 10 minutes, then it will be open to the gallery to speak. So we'll try to make sure that happens. And I know you're all very respectful, just to comment on the meeting. It is council's meeting. This is where council makes the decision. So we do request that When people do come up to speak, they maintain respect, civility. And I also ask that the members of the gallery refrain from clapping or cheering, or vice versa, any expressions of whatever they want to do. And that allows the speaker to speak. It also allows council to listen attentively to what speakers have to say. Without further ado, Mr. Sadler.
My name is
Go ahead.
Andrew Sadler. I live on 1110 Fellowship Drive. I would like to comment on the 9.2 on the agenda. So I am a tenant who caretakes for my landlord's secondary property. He vacation rentals a couple of the suites on the unit, and I live full-time in one of the suites in that unit. So it's been a very beneficial thing to me because it has provided me low rent for low responsibilities. I just keep an eye on the place, I take out the trash, and I get affordable rent. And it's been a very stable, very good situation. So because we've opted in to the province's regulations, I will be considered the host of that operation. This means I will need to, from what I can understand, I'll need to get a business license. I'll need to register with the province with my SIN number. I'll need to manage bookings and run the business, pay annual fees, essentially run the whole business. I have a job already. I don't want to run somebody else's business. I'm gonna have to quit my job and my meaningful work in order to have my place to live if we don't choose to opt out, as I understand it. And I'm not the only person in this caretaking situation. And so, in my opinion, the only logical way to actually have regulations that will benefit tenants, because I'm a tenant, opting in was supposed to help tenants, right? So opting out, in my opinion, is the only logical thing to do in order to, so that the district can enforce meaningful regulations that will actually help people like myself maintain their living situation, and of course, things you guys need to do. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Are we helping the tenants? So we need to opt out. We're a resort municipality with unique, nuanced needs. And yeah, these regulations were made for us. We need to make our own. Thank you.
We have Tyler. Sorry, I can't read you. I can't read you.
Chicken scratch, no worries. Tyler Plummador, 1422 Pack Rim, the 9.2 agenda. Just wanted to talk about the effects that you guys are just having on staff. I don't quite blame you. Like, it's kind of a party thing. You guys all answer to somebody. You're really hurting the town with the staff, like my staff. We pay them great. We do the best I can. I understand, like, council, you guys are kind of money mules for your teams. Like, that's just the way it is. It's affecting these people in ways that it shouldn't. And I understand you're trying to accomplish good, but all these people are doing just like that gentleman. He's going to have 2 jobs now. He's going to be up in a tax bracket. He doesn't benefit, but you guys do. So I'm just curious on what it is. Like, I understand your bottleneck from Victoria, and we all have somebody to answer to, and that's where all the tax money is coming from. But you guys are taking the tax money. We're not getting anything from this. I'm curious on what it is that your agenda here is. We have no infrastructure. Even I own a cleaning business. We can't fill up a mop bucket because of your policies, because we have no infrastructure. So when you're doing this, where is all your tax money going to come from?
If you're asking questions, this is comment period, so you get to make.
I'm just curious on like the whole process here, because they're all wondering what they're going to do with their homes. They can't do dividends. They can't save because you're taxing the living crap out of them. And now you want to take and blow down their business even more with this. The staff are going to suffer. They're making great wages now the way it is. It's a tourist town. It's seasonal. That's not going to change regardless. I understand everyone needs housing. there's projects on your agenda that are sitting waiting because there's no infrastructure here. The housing could have been solved a long time ago.
Sorry, that's time. If you have a question, if you want a question for council based on something, sign up for the end and you can actually ask.
Okay.
Mr. Sadler. Ken.
Well, I was gonna get you to read it out. I asked you to read it out in council.
Oh, read out your letter.
Mhm.
And actually, my computer's actually dead because we just did a
I have a copy.
reading. Somebody has the letter.
I have a copy.
If you're going to read out full correspondence, do that during the correspondence section.
Okay.
Save this.
Okay, of course. Yeah, this is a time for people to speak, and if there's a letter coming, that can be in correspondence, and it's also there for all of council to read as well as open to the public to read those letters.
And when will that be read?
That's well, it's in correspondence. We can read your letter out in correspondence. Ms. Travis.
My name's Tia Travis. I live at 768 Ocean Park Drive. And I'm speaking to 9.2 as well. As a real estate professional working in Tofino exclusively for 13 years, I have firsthand experience with the Tofino housing market and have given numerous reasons why I felt Bill 35 was a bad fit for our community. Bill 35 might create a home, maybe, but I don't see how the bill can be worth all the collateral damage it's causing. Since the registry is opened, we have learned that the effect the legislation has on STRs in Tofino is substantially different from what the council opted into last year. I met with mayor and majority of council members prior to opting in last year, and everybody was under the impression that the legislation only affected 2 condo developments, Fred Tibbs and Ike Landing. The principal resident requirement on single-family homes at the time seemed as though it was fulfilled by having a tenant living on site. Now, as we understand it, the tenant is meant to have meant to be legally entitled to possession of a property where the short-term rental is being offered, meaning they're supposed to be renting the part of the house where the short-term rental is taking place, in addition to the place they live in. In order to register your rental with a tenant living on site, your tenant is obligated to register as the host and supply their SIN number. I personally don't think any tenant should be giving out their SIN number without receiving legal advice first, as they have no idea how this could affect them down the road. I'm currently aware of 2 STR owners in this town who have gotten their tenant SIN numbers and submitted them to the registry. I'm aware of another STR owner who has their tenant SIN number and doesn't know what to do. They don't want to submit it. They feel it's wrong, but they also feel their hands are tied given they have a full calendar of summer bookings and are only getting this information now. Bill 35 does not fit Tofino. Tenants are being manipulated into going along with the seller's way of skirting the rules. When you made the decision to opt in, it was based on the information available at the time. Does this new information not warrant further?
That is your 2 minutes. If we have time at the end, you can continue your comments after we get through. If there's time. Domingo. I'm just checking the graph.
Can I go?
Your name,
Oh, sorry,
address.
Tla-o-qui-aht. I live at 653 Farley Place, and I'm addressing 9.2. Can I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
You're up.
so I operate 2 legal SDRs that are not in my principal residence, but in the principal residence of a tenant. Managing these is my business and livelihood. The last 3 weeks have been extremely stressful, trying to get clear answers as to the intention of this bill regarding legal and financial implications between tenants/hosts and property owners. I've made multiple phone calls to the ministry as well as lawyers. I get a different answer every single time. The only answer that has been consistent among all the people I have spoken with is that why did Tofino opt in? This bill was never intended for us. It is now clearer than ever that opting in was done prematurely.
In Canada, municipal councils have a legal duty to make informed decisions and communicate those decisions and their implications to the public. Now, I know that this was not done intentionally and that council's decisions were with good intentions. But the fact is that council has failed the community on both these counts. One, making an informed decision implies that council must review and comprehend the implications of any new legislation. It is clear now that council opted in without fully understanding the legislation and implications of these decisions. Two, communicating implications to the public. This was not done, as we still clearly don't know what the implications are. Legal business owners have been left scrambling, trying to figure things out on their own. Let me remind you that for now, we are legal business owners who deserve to be treated with fairness and respect. We should not be worrying if our business is going to get shut down with little or no notice. I'm here to ask council to opt out by March 31st so we can start over and give managing STRs and housing issues a fair process that doesn't rip the community apart. Thank you.
Mr. Midgley.
Evan Midgley, 264 First Street. In my 25 years of running my studio, I haven't seen my sales plummet as much as since this event has taken place. My business has been toasted, literally. And it's just like the town has to decide what it wants to do, whether it wants to go socialist or whether it wants to go and support the individuals who are trying to run businesses here. I fear for the town in the future if we don't have a mix of community. One of the problems I think the town was trying to solve was the absentee owners. Here we were listening to somebody who's here who has a couple of properties that rents them out, but they're living here. I think the town should be concerned about the absentee owners that live in Toronto. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've come to the end. I think we're probably pretty close to 10 minutes. 10 minutes?
1 minute remaining.
1 minute left. I will open it up. To
Yes,
anybody else who'd like.
Want to finish here or do you want?
I had like one more sentence.
Oh, you were gonna finish off here.
Last thing that I had was.
Sorry, just a moment. We've got actually one person online, so you're gonna have to sit back down. I got your letter. We've got a very little time left, but I'm gonna give Ms. Henro 1 minute. That's all right. Do we have 1 minute left in our 10 minutes?
1 minute, 4 seconds.
All right.
We need more minutes.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Casey Hurenko, and I am owning 1156 Pacific Rim Highway. I just want to say that I feel that council needed to take a 30,000-foot view of the goals of opting in last year. I believe that the intent was to provide affordable housing in Tofino for the people that work there. I get it. In 2017, I built a purpose-built house on my property that is solely for a monthly rental. That was required by the district, and I met that requirement. And now we've got another snag, and this is just really awful for me. Now this is on a personal level, but I think the more important thing is if you're trying to provide affordable housing in Tofino, it is not a one-shot deal. There have to be other approaches to getting, not other approaches, but a number of approaches to providing housing. And this.
We're gonna have to cut you off there. It's our 10 minutes is up, but just to let you finish, I think we'll give you another I'll look to council. Sorry.
Mayor Law, just a procedural item that may impact the decision in terms of how long you may want to extend. Mr. Sadler's letter is not included on the agenda. So if there was a request, for you to read it out, you'd have to read it during this period of time, but you'd have to suspend the rules and extend beyond 10 minutes to allow time for that as well as the remainder of time.
Okay, well, what I'm gonna do is, I'm going to, make a motion to suspend the rules to allow, Ms. Hemko to finish and then allow, Mr. Sadler's letter to be read. I'll look for a seconder. Here, any further comments? All in favor? None opposed, motion's carried. Okay, Ms. Hemko, we're gonna give you another minute.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate it. It's Harenko, by the way, Casey Harenko.
Harenko, sorry.
Yes, you know me well, sir.
Well, I always use Casey, but.
Okay. I just want to regroup and say that I think the 30,000-foot view of what this was supposed to do, which was to provide affordable housing in Tofino, has missed the mark. And I think it's great to tighten up people who are taking advantage of rules, but that's not what's happening with a lot of people. And I think a number of the speakers addressed that. So I'll just leave it at that. I just wanted to remind us that we were looking for affordable housing, if I'm not mistaken.
Do we have a copy of Mr. Sadler's letter?
So I'll just look to the corporate officer to see if there is a copy available of the letter, and we may need to take a 1 or 2 minute recess to find it.
I can read it off my phone.
Do you want me to read it off your phone?
I can read it off.
Okay, well, that's fine. Why don't you come up and just state your name and address.
I'm Ken Sadler. I'm from 1115 Fellowship Drive. And I do I have a principal residence, a home, and I have a home also that we have a full-time renter in. In regards to the situation, many of our communities have endured the sustained financial trauma of COVID closures, road closures, financial difficulties due to worsening economy, and now we have a tariff war with the USA. Our guest houses bring in needed finances in the winter to support our local businesses, to pay for all the taxes and amenities in Tofino. I am a 60-year-old, and many of us rely on our guest house income to survive in retirement. As a citizen of Tofino, who has helped in bringing in low-cost properties and housing to this community, and has seen the benefits of providing low long-term caretaker rental, I implore you to reconsider and opt out of Bill 35. We are a tourism community, and the only people benefiting from Bill 35 at this time was a bill that was written by a lobbyist from the hotel industry. And hotels are owned by US interests who jacked their rates up last year and this year as well. The Headwaters project still has low-cost units available. They may not now. I'm not sure why we are punishing the local residents of Tofino who have run legitimate home businesses for many, many years, 27 years for us. The new bill requires our caretakers to assume financial and legal responsibilities for our guest house, which they cannot do due to their full-time jobs. How is that fair to them? And how is that fair to us? Do we ask them to leave so that someone else can do their part-time job? They cannot. I understand that there are people purchasing homes from outside of Tofino for SDR revenue. That I don't agree with. But we can come to a solution that won't punish legally licensed residents of Tofino who contribute to our. Thank you.
That concludes our public comment and agenda items. With no delegations, we do have correspondence. 9.1, the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities regarding the 2025 AVIC AGM and convention. We have registrations live. We have the option to can we sign up now, because we don't have make them all. I probably have prepared motions.
I think we can't hear all the voices back here for some of the people.
You can't hear the voices.
No, you was mentioning it's having a hard time hearing.
Okay, I'll try to speak louder. We've got Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, so I do have a motion in front of me. We do have a motion that is being brought forward from the District of Tofino Council for AVICC, so we can, all of us can go, or some of us can go. So I've got a motion to approve up to 7 council members that be authorized to attend AVICC.
I'd like to go.
You would like to go? Okay, well, why don't I just read the motion and then we can go, make it okay, and then whoever wants to sign up, can sign up, then, it's great. Okay, well, I'll read, from the chair. That up to 7 council members be authorized to attend the AVICC 2025 Annual General Meeting and Convention scheduled to be held April 11 to 13, 2025 in the Nanaimo, BC, and be reimbursed for costs in accordance with the District of Tofino Council Remuneration Bylaw number 1254/2018. By Councillor Steer. Any further comments? All in favor? None opposed, motion's carried. All right. Now we're moving on to Mayor Love. Yeah.
On this item, I need to declare a conflict of interest. So I am declaring that I have a pecuniary conflict of interest regarding item 9.2 related to my business interests. And I'll be recusing myself from the decision and returning to the meeting after council has considered the letters.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. And we'll have our corporate officer at the conclusion. Right, 9.2. We have many letters from the members of the public regarding short-term rentals, specifically requesting council to opt out. Just remind council that no motion is on the table here. Previous motion to opt in stands, would require a new discussion of council, a new motion to decide to opt in, take effect later this year. That's
Could we speak a little louder, please?
Sorry about that. Yeah, not used to having all those people back there.
Little microphone.
Yeah, we need a microphone. Good. Every other council has a microphone. Put it on our financial planning. Just going back onto the discussion here. This is the discussion to opt, or the motion to opt in stands. This would require a new motion from council to discuss this matter and to make a different decision in the future. So I'm just going to look to council right now. If this is something that council wants to entertain, or Councillor Sloman.
Yeah, I feel like after reading all the letters and hearing from many community members, I feel like it would be worthwhile to revisit this discussion.
Listen, I cannot have council, the council chambers, I cannot have clapping or booing or anything. Okay, council has to make these decisions without that kind of input. And I'm going to stand to that. Thank you, Councillor Sloman. Other councillors? Other councillors? Councillor Steer?
Through the chair. I think Councillor Sloman has brought up a good point, and I think what I think if it's amenable to the rest of council, we can refer this back to staff, some specific direction, with recommendations to report back to council, if that would be amenable to the rest of council. We have one councillor that has brought it forward.
So if, so what we do is we can have a discussion on the table and, discussion council, then if Councillor Sloman would like to make a motion, then that can happen. And let's go around the table, like, to see what the councillors have to say. Councillor Sawyer.
Yes, I would be open to discussion on Councillor Steer's point. Seeing if staff would come forward with any further recommendations in a future meeting.
Councillor Sloman, you got your hand up?
Yes, I do have a draft motion prepared.
You have that one. Okay. We can have more discussion, or we can go into a motion. Councillor Master.
I'm just not sure what we can expect staff to report back on from something that's only been in place since November of last year. I remember when I did my big speech, I said it'd take a year to 2 years to see the effects of this. And to be debating it 4 months after it's come into place seems a bit ridiculous to me.
I would say that asking staff to prepare a report in such a short amount of time is probably unrealistic, given that this would require significant community input. But again, I think the process we went through last year is not something that can be condensed into a couple of weeks. I also have to say that we have not seen the effects through fully yet, and that even if we were to have staff come back and alter course, it still stands for this summer. And I think that we would be remiss to not to make a decision on that before we see how this actually is for the summer season.
Okay, I do have a comment, I guess, from my perspective. And I'd have to say, listening to some of the comments and reading some of the letters, that the why council opted in maybe was not clear. Many people, I can see that. Certainly was clear to me. I think that when I was in that process with council, listening to councillors discuss it, listening to the data and the research and all the conversations went on, that decision was not made lightly. And I also think that it wasn't a decision that this council came to all of a sudden on its own. It's my recollection that many previous councils discussed this very option even further to restrict short-term rentals to owner-occupied. And certainly as long as I've been in elected office, I've been sent to the province to ask for that option, to find a way in the province to help us get that option. We've had legal reviews for that option. So I don't think that this was sudden, although the province certainly made it quicker than it had been. I don't think it was arrived at lightly. And I think it's honestly something that the town as a whole has to address, that it's actually a critical issue as opposed to just a difficult issue. But we do have a motion, so if Councillor Sloman, if you'd like to read your motion.
Yes, I move that the discussion regarding opting out of the principal resident requirement under Bill 35 for the March 31st, 2025 deadline be referred to staff.
by Councillor Steer. Okay, I think this bears a good conversation amongst council. So now is the time to debate for councils to discuss and debate this before we call the question. So perhaps we'll go through, perhaps down the line and everybody can. Councillor Steer, would you like to start us out?
Yeah, and I think it, in light of the information that has come forward from the province, and I do hear the rest of the council, and those points are very well articulated, and I fully understand them. I think with the information that's come forward in terms of the registry and the principal residency requirements, that was something from my perspective that we hadn't had information about in terms of the structure. We certainly understood the intent of the bill, but not all the fine details that would allow us in many ways to make a more informed decision about what those impacts potentially would be to the community and to the potential objectives that I think were clearly articulated by council for the purpose of opting into the legislation. So I think it would be important and recognizing that those time constraints are certainly there and may not be able to be come to fruition in time. But that being said, I do think it is worth having that conversation again and to be able to open it up to, with the new information, be able to provide a more nuanced context to the conversation.
Felt strongly about owner occupied for years leading up to this, and I still feel strongly about owner occupied. I do not think that we put the community through the emotional turmoil of opening this up for a wider community. So
No, this is bullshit. I'm leaving. Sorry, I'm leaving. Yeah, I'm leaving. This is the community that you're fucking.
Yeah.
These are the people that are fucking.
Point of order. Point of order. Cannot have that. Council. Council has to make decisions without being threatened or coerced. It's got to be that way. So just a warning.
Yes.
Carry on.
Yeah, I don't want to send this back to staff.
I've been pretty firm ever since I've been on council. I wanted to see short-term rentals to be operated by the property owner. When the bill was brought in, I was a little disappointed that they'd extended it to the permanent residents. Tenant rather, but I knew that was going to lead to a lot of headaches. Having seen other jurisdictions around the world that I tried to introduce that, I felt it offered an opportunity for the people that were business astute, a way of getting around this. And I also thought that would be issues for the tenant with the strength of the Landlord Tenancy Act in Canada or BC. I always said 2 to 3 years it would take to see a positive effect of this. And so I won't be supporting this motion because I don't think that staff can offer anything meaningful at this time, but we've got no data to operate on.
Can't have conversations. We can't. This is for council to discuss. I will call a recess, have everybody leave, and we can go back in 15 minutes. Okay? I know this is an intense issue. There is a certain demographic here. We must allow council to have a debate without coercion. Councillor Sawyer.
All right, thank you. I'm hearing and supporting points from both councillors Thomas and Steer. I feel like there is information that would make a new conversation worthwhile. However, I also respect the meaningfulness of any actions that staff could recommend in such a short amount of time. I think that I would support this simply from hearing from staff and allowing us to have discussion on whether or not we think that we have received enough information to reconsider this.
Um. Counselor Solomon, you've still got your hand up or?
Oh, yes, but I'd like to make another comment if I could.
Why don't you let me make my comment and we'll be all even Steven and then we can go around one more time.
Okay.
This is a very, very, very difficult decision that council made. I did not make it lightly. I already mentioned that. I already mentioned that I think this is a critical problem, short-term rentals. Not just a difficult problem. I think that critical problems, which are existential problems, I see this as an existential problem in Tofino, require decisive action. It's probably the most difficult thing politicians can do. Times have changed. 4 or 5 years ago, in Tofino was a different Tofino. The Tofino of today, or last year, the median value home was $1.6 million. The annual household income required to qualify for that type of loan is over $300,000 a year. It is impossible for over 90%, 95% of the people of Tofino, households of Tofino, to own a home here. We have the highest rate of short-term rentals in Canada per capita. We have, well, the numbers could go on and on. We have a hospital that we have to keep open. We have a district we have to run. We have sewer, we have water. We cannot run these places without people. Good people who have real jobs. Those people have to have a house to live in. They have to be able to afford it. And this is right, a very difficult decision, but is your investment second homes we're talking about? They're not the homes that people live in and they're renting a suite. These are second or third or fourth or fifth homes in some cases. They may be individuals who live here. They may be individuals who live in Squamish or Whistler or Toronto. They may be corporations increasingly that own homes. This is one way that we can bring that back. It's not impossible. I don't see it as impossible for these to continue running. I know some people that have already done it. And so in some ways it's a compromise between owner only and while still allowing the possibility of some investment properties to run as short-term rentals. That's a compromise. I think the way I see it, this is different, requires a different decision. So personally, I say stay the course. We'll see what happens in 2 years or a year and a half. We've had the whole community talk. I've had many, many, many more people than are here who are on the other side of the fence weigh in with very different opinions and different perspectives, and I have to listen to those as well. So that's where I'm at. So I would not hold back to council or to staff at this time, but revisit it next year after we see how it works. That's where I'm at. But Councillor Sloan, I'm open. We get one more round.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and you know, I do feel strongly about the principal resident requirement, but I just feel in this situation the property owners don't have enough time to react, and I just feel like by opting out it would provide them a little bit of leeway. And then we could look at opting back in the future, or future councils could look at opting back in. This legislation is here. This decision is always going to be here. I feel like even just having it there is going to have an impact on the housing. So those are just some of my final thoughts.
So, round one more time if we want to, everybody's got a chance to place. Councillor Steer, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I mean, and we've had this, and once again, to the community, we know this has become a divisive issue. And I think one of the objectives early on was to have the discussion once, and and we're having it now again. And you know, the points that are made on both sides are strong and articulated points. And it is difficult in many ways to make a decision that's going to satisfy everybody. We know that, and you've articulated clearly a vision that you see down the road, and I don't disagree with it. The necessary curbing of investment opportunities when we look at housing as an investment rather as a place to live and raise your families within the community. I fully support and understand that. And you're correct in the sense that Tofino has changed. Living most of my life here, it was very different 40 years ago when I arrived. It was a much different community. The economics have changed. The ability for many people to be able to remain in the community, to be able to have access to the economy of this community now. This is a challenge, and we know that. And so I think the opportunity to be able to generate that, we have the ability through other tools to look at where we really want to meet those objectives. You know, and we've articulated this in the past through our zoning bylaw review, where we can really look at where we want to focus our attention. You've clearly articulated the fact that I don't know anybody in an income bracket, even if we reduce the values of the homes that are presently being vacation rental, even if we reduce them by 50%, there is still, I don't know too many people in this community that could still afford to buy a house here. What I do see is that the district has worked extremely hard in addressing this housing issue. And this was one piece of that. And I'm not saying that we should not be addressing STRs. We certainly have to. We've addressed the need for housing in here through the development of the Tofino Housing Corporation. And we have attained 90 units of attainable housing within this community. That's unprecedented for a community of our size. We have initiated tools and we've been responsible in that way. So I think this is once again the ability to re-examine the conversation, not so much, you know, the opting in and the opting out has become the divisive issue, but it's really that larger context of what is important for the community, economically, housing, they all are hand in hand. I think this would be an opportunity to give, once again, that breathing space to be able to have the conversation.
I don't think I have anything new to add to Councillor Sloan's motion.
You know, zoning question that comes up, and it's the question is if we're going to curtail short-term rentals. This option really does target people's investment houses, second, third, fourth, sometimes fifth house. Zoning will inevitably target people's primary residence. It's a possibility. That's what we're talking about. I see the effects already. I know that if you know we're trying to tackle the investment crush, people buying homes. Somebody grows up here, has a home, they sell it for an exorbitant amount of money. It's bought by an investor, turned into short-term rental. We lose a house, we lose somebody, we lose a family. And then the idea is, well, we have this tenant now, that's good enough. I don't see that as viable. That is just not viable. Like I say, it's this is not the same as it was a few years ago. It's different. It requires a different. And I do think if prices come down, they've already come down. I noticed that prices did come down. There's a price to income ratio that I talk about. A healthy price to income ratio is anywhere between 3 and 8. So that's 3 to 8 times the median value income. In Tofino, it's just over 100 grand for a household, so it should be somewhere around 8 or 10, noting that you can short-term rental maybe a little more. Ours is 16. It is completely unsustainable. The town will fail. That's my feeling. If this carries on, the town will not be able to function, and that's where it comes down to me. I've said it before, I say it again. I don't think taking this back to staff and asking them to come back with a report and having this discussion again, we'll have to open it up to everybody as well, not just short-term rental owners, but the whole community once again. And that's a different crowd. So I guess I'm not changed.
Yeah, I haven't changed. I really have nothing to add. We just have to give time for this plan to work.
Yeah, thank you. My concerns today are the same as they were when we first started talking about this. And even though I recognize what we're saying about housing prices, not many people that I know are in the position to buy those houses. So, you know, my concerns are mostly the tenants. I do know someone who has successfully registered the business license for the property that they live on. And so I do know that it's possible. But my greater concern is that I'm hearing that so many owners feel overwhelmed to the point of not being willing or feeling capable of following through with the steps of making that happen. And so I would just be concerned to see like a mass loss of housing for the rental community. What I'm hearing today, not just in these letters, but what I'm feeling the most right now.
Just for clarity, any decision to opt out would not take effect this year. It would take effect in November.
No, I'm clear, but
yeah. All right, we're gonna go. Let's say, Tatiana.
Mayor Law, if I may, just reflecting on the motion and the potential referral to staff. Speaking about a report that would have to come back to council, the timeline around that would be March 11th. I'd just like to a little bit speak to the content of that type of report. That would require that quick turnaround. It would be an information report. In the early stages of council examining this issue, and staff came forward, myself, to explain the act and go through the regulations. What was not available, which we articulated through consultation, was information on the registry and how the regulation would come out and what those requirements are. So if a staff report were to come forward, it would be information, and it would be on the new information that is available on the registry. If that helps in terms of what council could expect from staff, that's primarily what it could be. Quick turnaround.
So just to clarify, we would not have a full report on anything else, just the clarification of the new registry requirements, how they actually play out.
I wouldn't, there couldn't be a report discussing the merits of opting in or opting out. There couldn't be a recommendation from staff. There'd be no requirement to do further meaning, but you know, the piece around that registry is something that we could offer to council in terms of further information. I would see it as an information.
Okay, well, that would be, I would be interested. Personally, I don't know if it'll change my opinion of anything, but it certainly inform me of the realities, because I know there's a lot of misinformation, perhaps misunderstanding out there on this. So now, Councillor Thomas.
Oh, I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, sorry. Noting that, just make that clear for council that goes fine. I'm not sure on the vote, but anything further? No, that's it.
I don't think that would change my mind. I was pretty aware of what the registry requirements were going to be from seeing what happened around the world. And it doesn't surprise me at all if a tenant's going to be running a business, you're expected to be paying taxes on it. The way you can verify that tenant is paying taxes is civil.
Councillor Thomas?
I think knowing that the information we're going to get is telling the registration requirements essentially, because we won't see anything new from that in the next 2 weeks. That information is all readily available from the province, and that information should best be coming from the province. And I think having our staff get in the middle and being potentially held liable for things they may say or their interpretations is potentially exposing our staff to a very difficult situation.
Yeah, I'll just wait for a call here. Want to comment on that, Ms. Etienne?
Sure, yeah, I wouldn't feel at risk of them. I think that the act is clear as the act is to read, and there is, a lot of difficult language in there to interpret. And staff has spent a great deal of time calling the housing branch, asking questions of clarification, which we did in the early days as well. So the information that would be shared would be information received from the Ministry of Housing. So I don't necessarily see that staff would be at risk.
I'd be interested to see that anyway. I think there's enough information out there that I would find important. I would hate to give the illusion that it would somehow result in the magical opting out. That's what that would be my fear. And just remember, there is no opting out this year. This would be a recurring question. I'm sure that comes up every year. But noting that, I don't know. I think I think I'd go for that report. Under no illusions that I'm at this point interested in opting out. Okay, all right, well then we'll call the question. All in favor, and just, can you repeat the motion, please, just so we get that motion right? Oh, you're muted? You're muted?
Sorry. I move that the discussion regarding opting out of the principal residence requirement under Bill 35 for the March 31st, 2025 deadline be referred to staff.
Councillor Steer?
I'm wondering if there could be a friendly amendment to the motion.
I think there probably should be, yeah.
I've drafted that, but I think in the context of what it sounds like council, there may be a majority of council that would support an amended to read staff. And I'll look to Councillor Sloman to see if that would be acceptable to come back with a report to clarify the new principal residency requirements.
That's quite a different report.
I think that's what my understanding, and I could look to see if that maybe is the intent, but I'll look to Councillor Sloman to see if an amendment. I'm hearing from staff with the ability to to prepare a report as might be suggested in the motion is not feasible, and what would be practical would be a clarification of the principal residency requirement, because there has been expressed a number of through the letters and through the comments today, a lot of confusion around the implications around that.
May I make a comment?
Second, I see Dan's hand up.
I can assist you just with procedure. Because the motion is so different, it wouldn't be a friendly amendment, and it'd be better to
That's what
proceed with this motion and consider a follow.
Yeah, it's a very different motion. Staff prepare report to clarify principal residence requirements. Prepare. Sorry, Councillor Sloman, I wish I had yours in writing. Can you read it one more time?
Yes. I move that the discussion regarding opting out of the principal resident requirement under Bill 35 for the March 31st, 2025 deadline be referred to staff. I'm sorry, my computer froze. Did you get that?
Yeah. What's what Q&amp is offering is a report that comes back to better clarify the principal residence requirements from province, so that council may, if they want to revisit the opt-in decision.
That would be the extent of the friendly amendment. But obviously, this is a different. I would agree that it is a much different motion than what I was trying to make friendly.
Okay, well then what we're gonna do is we're gonna just deal with the motion that's in front of us, and then we can make another motion if that's the case. That may be a bit of a softer or more directed motion. Councillor Sawyer, one last question.
Comment. And this is a comment to Councillor Sloman. Just thank you. So hearing from staff that there would be no meaningful discussion that we'd be able to have, and also that the opting out motion wouldn't take effect this year, I would no longer be supporting that motion, because I'm in favor of getting more information and then making a more fulsome decision in the future, if that's where we end up going.
Okay, any further comment on the motion that's on? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion is denied. Councillor Steer, do you have a?
Yeah, I think you've written down there.
Trying.
I'd like to make a motion. Yes.
I'm gonna write it down here.
Thank you. The language for staff to prepare a report to clarify the principal residency requirement. Then report back to council
for
the March 11th.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, is that our, Ms. McCall, did you get that? Okay, now we're in the motion now. Now we can have a discussion about this. If council so chooses. Through. Clear what we're getting. Possibilities. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? 1, 2 opposed. Okay, motion's carried. Thank you. That concludes 9.2. We can go on to. Oh, yeah. Convening, and we're on item 9.3. Noise bylaw. This is still under correspondence. Councilor McMaster.
I would like to refer this to staff because I think there's some valid points in this. I know enforcing noise bylaws is a real headache. And especially having been involved in the Legion over the years. But I do think there's some merits to some of the points in this letter, and I think we could do with updating our noise bylaws, because it is it's like anything else, it's a nuisance. So I'll make a motion to refer this letter to staff.
Seconded. We have a hand up, Councillor Sloman.
Oh, no, that's okay. Duncan covered it all.
Okay, any comments from staff or comments from council? Seeing none. All in favor? Motion's carried, referred to staff. 9.4, Tofino Housing Corporation regarding late and wait traffic.
I'll refer this to staff, and just as a bit of history, I mean, I thought we'd actually discussed this in the past. When we were proposing headwaters, one of the concerns raised by the neighbourhood was increased traffic, possibly dangerous for pedestrians. And the Housing Corporation at the time said that they would investigate traffic calming measures, possibly speed bumps, possibly using paint on the roadway to designate pedestrian walkway. And council at the time was aware of this when we gave the annual report. And I feel we owe it to the neighbourhood to come up with a plan. Whether that neighbourhood approves a plan, I'm not sure, because I think the neighbourhood now includes headwaters, so there might be totally different views. But I think to establish the credibility and integrity of the Housing Corporation, we should continue to come up with a plan. I'd like to refer this to staff that they arrive at a plan that we can possibly present to the neighbourhood. Second.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Anderson. I have a question for staff. Just sorry, we're in the motion, but I'm going to sort of, because you haven't had a chance to speak on this one yet. There's an outlying issue with money. Who pays for you speak on that a little bit?
Okay, a couple things I wouldn't mind staff speaking to. One is we can talk about cost, and then I just may ask Mr. Rogers to speak to how we typically tackle having discussions around traffic calming and how we make decisions around that, just from a process perspective, so you can understand how we may handle this if it is referred to staff. I understand that the Housing Corporation and or Catalyst would support the cost of something like this, or whatever the result is. It would come back to council first in terms of proposal and how we would address it. Currently, looking at traffic calming in this area is not in our work plan. So if it is referred to staff, we'll also bring back potential options for consultation and potential costing, as well as timelines on when we could carry out this work. So that's what it would look like if it was referred to staff. We do that initially, but maybe I could be wrong on sort of the initial stages, but I'll maybe get Mr. Rogers to talk about it.
Thank you, Ms. Etienne, and to the chair, to council. Obviously, happy to look at this for council. In the past, we get similar requests often from other parts of the community about slowing down traffic. Generally, we try to start with awareness, signage. Sometimes, and in this case, we've asked if the RCMP could be there at certain times to just try to encourage better behavior. So we try to encourage the behavior. If we were to look at this, it will come with budget implications. It likely wouldn't happen this year. And I think the two main options on the table are the speed bumps and or the sort of designated painted sidewalk. And so happy to do so. What the issue that it brings up, the bigger issue to consider as we do this is, are we creating a process then for other parts of the community to follow, which is fine, because then we'll have a process and we can walk everybody through that. Yeah, so maybe I'll just leave it at that. It's just, if we can do this, it opens up a bigger question for us in the past. We tended to stay away from this. We would probably have to look at in terms of like what we'd actually have to do in terms of actions, potentially change some policy, update our subdivision development bylaw. The only place that we kind of do this on a consistent basis is Lynn Road, because we don't have sidewalk there. It's long. We have a lot of people there, and then some other areas where we have issues here and there, like on Gibson Street, the gravel area, but speed bump there. So there may be one or two other areas. So happy to do so. It will have budget implications, and it probably comes to council with some sort of larger process as well for considering other areas of the community that have speeding areas, especially places like the school, which has come up quite often.
Oh, question, Council Master, Councilor. Council Sloman. I got a quick question. Actually, are you asking?
No, I'll make a comment later. I was responding to that.
Okay, I had since we've gotten here, can we have questions? Because I have a question for staff. So can we do questions? Go ahead. You got a question
Yes.
for staff?
Yes.
Good.
So, I mean, obviously concerning that this was missed during the DVP and servicing agreement. As I'm reading this, I see that it's saying THC is committed to providing these traffic calming measures. So would this then come out of the district's financial plan, or would it be a separate board decision from THC?
Chair, Councilor, I don't know if this is the correct term. First off, there was no application by the Tofino House Corporation to change to vary this part of the village development bylaw, and these works are outside of the law that the Tofino Housing Corporation was working on, so there wasn't really a process in place. So there was comments made by the THC in response to community concerns that this came from, but there was nothing moved forward from the applicant side, and the district at the time, for many reasons, didn't pick that up. So I just wanted to be clear about the fact. I don't think anything was missed. I just don't think the process in place for what we were talking about. In terms of funding, I believe, as far as I know, I think Tofino Housing Corporation, I don't want to speak for Tofino Housing Corporation, there's two board members here. I don't believe they have. I believe that it's coming from the district side, but I haven't been told.
Just a follow-up. Apologies for the language. The word used was omission, not missed. Thank you.
My question's been answered. Councilor Sloman, did you have a question for staff? Oh, you're on mute.
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Okay, well, Councilor Masters first and then you.
Comment, number one, I realise it can't be done this year. And I wasn't expecting that. My other comment was to keep the credibility of the Housing Corporation and Council. We appeased the neighbourhood by saying we would come up with a plan. Doesn't mean to say the neighbourhood will go with that plan, so it might not happen at all. But I think we have to come up with a plan, because if we do another headwaters somewhere else and the neighbours kick up a fuss and we say, well, we're going to do something here, we can come up with a traffic calming plan for you. They'll say, well, you never did it for headwaters. Lost our credibility. So that's why I'm on my high horse on this one a little bit.
Councilor Sloman? Oh, did you have a comment? No. Councilor Sloman?
Yeah, I just have a comment. I did reach out to some, I mean, obviously it's not binding information I have, but I did reach out to some of the original members in the neighborhood, and they really would like some traffic calming and some sidewalks. So I agree with Councillor McMaster. I think that would be really important to follow through on that.
My question was, it was kind of similar to Councilor Sawyer's questions, because there's money involved, and if the DHC is paying for this, does that, make it different? I would say that would be the prerequisite to find out if THC is going to foot the bill for the whole thing. Then sure, I'd be in favor. Sure.
Just a question maybe directed this way, THC wise, given that there are still 2 lots to be developed, would that be an opportunity where we could use that time having that machinery in the area to do any of the traffic calming, any sidewalks, anything like that?
I think that's outside of this discussion.
Okay.
That's not, and just to be clear, and I believe this is from staff, is that traffic calming would not happen on the lots, they would happen on district property. So that the option is that THC would fund them, and I do believe THC had funds. We have 3 board members here. Okay, Councillor Thomas.
I think that we would, as Mr. Rogers pointed out, we would need a policy in place for other communities that might also want traffic calming. Because if we don't have something in place, people would just come and say, well, they paid for it, we did it, can we just pay for it and do it ourselves? So we should probably have something, like this works because it has been referenced as a suggestion at some point, but to have some sort of policy and make sure people are just rogue going and for their own speed bumps. Probably. Maybe that's thinking like stressing too much about a problem that doesn't necessarily exist yet, so just take that.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'd personally wait to see if you have a plan approved by the neighborhood to see if it actually goes ahead.
Noting that this is gonna be pushed off sometime in the future. And that by the financial implications will be addressed. Can we call the question? Want to read your motion again? Was it? Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's
Just to refer to
Refer to
staff.
refer to staff.
Okay, and staff have pretty well understood what they're expected of.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? None opposed, motion carried. Okay, wow, this is like old times when we spent 2 hours on correspondence. Presentations and reports. We're moving on to 10.2. There is no formal report. This is 10.1. Oh, wait, where did we miss them? Oh, gosh, here we are. Sorry, I scribbled all over it. And there it is up there. Okay, the 10.1, we have an invited presentation from Tla-o-qui-aht Regional District. The Regional District's financial plan.
I'm just gonna make myself at home here. So I can see. Okay, thank you. Good evening. Riveting discussion today. Thought I might be the most exciting thing on the agenda, but that is not true. So thank you for inviting me. I'm Terry Fong. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the Tla-o-qui-aht Regional District, and I'm here to talk about our draft 2025 to 2029 financial plan. And the clicker doesn't seem to work, so I'll use Vanna. Okay, so the financial plan is for a 5-year period, just as you guys do here at the municipality. We look at our revenues, expenditures, and our transfers to and from service or reserves, and we have to adopt by March 31st. So we are in heavy discussions, as I'm sure you are, and also on a traveling roadshow to the different areas to present our draft. With a regional district, all of our services are independent, so we cannot transfer money from service to service. So the airport cannot fund the landfill or planning. And so the allocation of our budget includes our staff resources. So we need to budget for our staff time across all of our approximately 60 services. And we cannot run a deficit in any of these services. How do we develop our plan? We take our operational costs of our existing services. Our board adopted a strategic plan. So the 2024 to 2027 strategic plan is the one we're working from right now. We also do kind of a business case model or a proposed initiative case to really try to focus on the new initiatives that are being proposed each year. We have asset management plans for all of our services, so continue to try to fund those infrastructure gaps and try to develop a plan that is going to also be slightly responsive to any changing needs during the year. Our plan this year is about $29.4 million, which is about $200,000 than last year. The requisition component of it is about $12.6 million. So it's an increase of $745,000. There is an increase to this West Coast area as the West Coast Conventional Transit Service. We are transitioning to BC Transit, and I'll get into that further, but it's also our first full year of that service. So a lot of it relates to that. And then there was also an expansion in the Alberni Valley to their custom transit service. And we continue to leverage wherever we can higher levels of government and their grants. We have about $8 million anticipated this year in grant funding. So our financial plan is on our webpage. It's quite a substantial document because it has all the different areas, but we do try to make it so that you can just look at the stuff that is relevant to Tofino. And if people have comments, please feel free to email the budget at acrd.bc.ca website or phone the office. We are continuing to gather information as we go. So the 4 strategic plan areas are planning for a resilient and livable region, managing our assets and infrastructure, partnerships and communications, and advocacy and service. It is a 3-year financial plan or 4-year strategic plan. So obviously we're not hitting all of those this year, but really are trying to make some progress on that strategic plan. So regional planning is a service that the District of Tofino pays into, and it has all of our ALC and more regional and aspect permits. And there was quite active in 2024 with 14 permits. This service also does our sustainability and agriculture focus as well. So we continue to support the Agricultural Development Committee and the Coastal Foods Roundtable. We hosted a meat processing training program with North Island College in the Alberni Valley, which was well attended and was grant funded. We completed a corporate energy and emissions plan. In 2025, we're working on a agricultural water study, looking for food security and emergency planning. We're doing a greenhouse worker training program and continue to use our Community Climate Action Plan grant to support our sustainability planner. There is a lot of work done with the Tofino Community Food Initiative out on the West Coast and are really focused on with Colin Robinson with the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust as well. The District of Tofino does not have to, but chooses to pay $7,000 a year to participate in rural planning. So that is normally planning done for the electoral areas only. So Tofino does get a vote on the stuff that is within the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust area. There was no applications that were relevant to this in 2024. However, the district would participate in zoning amendments that impact the entire ACRD zoning bylaw. Sometimes it flips and sometimes it says no. There we go. West Coast Waste Management. So this is the landfill and your curbside services out on the West Coast. It was a very busy year last year with a lot of waste education and a lot of groundwork done on our new solid waste management plan. So a good team from both the Alberni Valley and the West Coast worked very hard on developing the guiding principles and goals and targets. Staff are just compiling all that information and we're bringing a report back to the board in March to figure out next steps. The landfill here on the West Coast is challenging. You guys don't, as you know, don't have a lot of taxpayers paying into it, and running in a landfill operation is expensive. We do need to look at some leachate upgrades. So we do anticipate some capital projects here coming up. In 2024, we started accepting the biosolids from the Tofino plant, and there has been some operational hiccups in the amount that we have been receiving and how to process that. So continue to work with our landfill contractor to make that as smooth as possible. So really kind of a year to reflect next year. They want to do an update of the design, operation, and closure plan before continuing on with solid waste management plan. West Coast Transit is expanding and BC Transit's taking over on March 1st. Dan had mentioned, or sorry, Mayor Law had mentioned that there is a ceremony on the 28th. So looking forward to that and the expansion of that service. Regional Parks was a quieter year after the opening of that last stretch of the multi-use path that connected Q&amp and Parks Canada. And looking for some work in the Alberni Valley here in the coming year. Pointed that way. Yeah. Okay. West Coast Multiplex Society has requested the ACRD reestablish some support for the society in assisting in advancing their objectives. So the board has opted to put some funding towards that project, $50,000 in this year. That will be a combination of probably some ACRD staff resources as well as a consultant. We'll need to work with the society to kind of work out a work plan now that the board has decided to commit to that. Long Beach Airport is a large operation for us to run, and we continue to try to generate more revenue in creative ways, such as parking revenues and expanded lease slots. Looking to hire an airport development manager this year so that we can do a land use plan. That is probably the main focus of that service. We do not run the emergency planning for this region, but are really working closely with the emergency management teams on the West Coast across the whole peninsula. And so really coordinating on things like a West Coast emergency cultural awareness and safety plan, the food security emergency needs, as well as partnering on a grant application this year for the EOC to do some joint training. And 911 is undergoing an upgrade and is going to next gen, so you'll be able to video your situations or text, and with that becomes a big GIS upgrade that is required. So we have pooled the money in the region to try to make that happen, and that will be a lot of work this year, and with a consultant all working together. General government is how we run the majority of our operations, but some highlights for the year include continuing to upgrade our IT in hopes of cybersecurity upgrades being adequate. And then the main part I'd like to focus on is the inclusive governance project. So that is really to try to get the non-treaty nations a voice at the regional district table in some form. So continue to work with the province and the nations and the municipalities to focus on what that would look like moving forward. It will require provincial legislation changes in order to occur. Other initiatives that might be of importance to Tofino would be the Transportation Committee. Highway 4 closure obviously impacted everyone's lives, so continuing to advocate. The province is supposed to be coming out with a report here shortly that we are hoping to build off of. Working with the First Nation partners on an equitable employment. So we want to find out what the barriers of employment are to build a study that was based out of some work we're doing with the SHOT, getting tenure of our Alberni Valley landfill, and continue to support as we can in the primary care recruitment and retention initiatives. And finally, the regional hospital district, separate legal entity, same group of taxpayers. There is no change in the tax requisition this year. It's budgeted at 1.836 million. The West Coast General Hospital debt is paid off, and we are building a reserve for the Tofino General Hospital. My understanding from Island Health is they're hoping to hear from the province early this year, I believe, about whether they can move to the business development plan stage of your Tofino Hospital, which I'm sure you guys are probably more well versed in than I am. So the impact to your area is almost 8%. A good chunk of that is West Coast Transit. And I will send this, actually, I guess you guys have the presentation if you'd like to load it on your website. But a big impact is really that expansion of service to the West Coast for the transit initiative. The other one that jumps out to me is 911. So most of that is done through North Island 911, and we don't have control over, well, we're one small vote on the control of their budget, but they're also trying to upgrade their infrastructure to meet the next gen 911 increases. So that 8.86 at the top is supposed to drop to 5 next year and be consistently at 5. They're really hoping to stay there. And you may argue with what your average household is, but that is what BC assessment tells me based on folios and total value. The problem and why you guys are still seeing increases is the Tofino values continue to increase higher than those of the other areas. So it does impact as we share costs on the basis of land and improvement, which I'm sure we might get a comment about from councillors here. And I ran through that super fast. I know it's already been a long meeting, but I'm definitely happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, that's council. Councillor Stewart, I
Well,
hope you don't have any because I know you're on this.
Well, it's not so much questions, and so maybe I'll wait if there are questions from council, and maybe just comments for council to be able to understand sort of what the implications of what alluding to in terms of why the conversations I've been having with the board around what I often refer to as the equitable distribution of our tax obligations, and that Tofino does brunt a substantial portion of that based on the fact that we have such high property values here. So Terry's been excellent at, engaging in the conversations to look at potential areas where we might be able to look at to make it more equitable.
Any other questions? Councillor Anderson?
Any of this information available? General public online?
Absolutely. So on the ACRD website, there is a 2025 to 2029 financial plan page that has our full financial plan. I'll load this presentation tomorrow not the video, but the PowerPoint tomorrow. And there's lots of information about all of our meetings and stuff on there as well.
I just have a question, but I might follow up in email later if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to just make maybe a comment and then I'll follow up later on. Maybe I'll do Councillor Steer, but it was about the increase in average residential. What was I think BC assessment has a slightly different number. It might be because it's a median value, but where did you get that increase?
So I'm not able to, unless I'm not finding it in the right spot, I lost that median value. So now we're just taking the total land and improvements divided by the number of occurrences. I used to get that report, and last year when I was asking for it, they said they didn't produce it anymore. So I've had to pivot on how I calculate that value. But BC assessment's slowly bringing some stuff back online that they used to have. So maybe I need to dig for it again.
I just want to make it, you might want to, I'll send a note out. It may, our house, let it go. Anything else? Thank you very much, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I can expand more on what Councillor Steer is talking about if you would like about the apportionment at some point, because I feel like that might be a big discussion for council as we move forward. So whenever, if you guys are wanting to meet more specifically about a service or something, we can do that.
I think that would be excellent. I think it's topical. I know that BC Transit was slightly different.
Yeah.
Apportionment, 50-50.
Yes, 50% population. 50.
And I think as we get into the multiplex, get forward in the multiplex, we need to revisit that. So I think that'd be a great discussion to have with council and how we can review those ratios.
Yes, perfect.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're on to 10.2. Let's we can probably go through. There's no formal report for 10.2, which is the minutes of the Events, Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee minutes. And we do have a couple recommendations. We do rely on our committees who do a wonderful job. So if somebody who was on one of those committees would like to read those recommendations, please go ahead. Is that you, Councillor?
No, I was just gonna offer to read them.
Oh, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I move that the minutes of the Events, Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee meeting held February 18th, 2025 be received. Second by Councillor Thomas.
Any further comments? All in favor? None opposed, motion is carried.
I move that the Events, Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee recommend the following recipients for the 2025 Arts, Culture and Heritage Grant Program as follows: Ariosa Dance Society, $3,500. BC, do you have to read these?
Yep. Yes, please.
Okay. BC Association of Surf Instruction, $3,500, and in-kind contribution of 1 day at the Tofino Community Hall. Carving on the Edge Society, carving of a hollow drum, in-kind contribution of 1 day at the Tofino Community Hall. Carving on the Edge Society, carving with Robinson Cook, $3,500, and in-kind contribution of 1 day at the Tofino Community Hall. Clackwood Action, $3,500. Clackwood Sound Community Theatre Association, Tofino Jazz Festival, $4,000. Clackwood Sound Community Theatre Association, Tofino Pop, $4,000. Friends of Clackwood Sound, $3,500. Pacific Rim Art Society, $2,500. Pacific Rim Whale Festival, $3,000. Tofino Arts Council, $4,000. Tofino Public Market Society, $4,000.
Any further comments? All in favor? Unopposed, motion is carried.
I move that the Events, Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee recommend to council that the following recipients for 2025 Events Support Grant Program be awarded as follows. Carving on the Edge Society Art Show, $4,000. Carving on the Edge Society Community Carving of a Hollow Drum, $3,175. Blackwood Action, $3,000 and in-kind contribution of a one-day at the Tofino Community Hall. Blackwood Biosphere Trust, $4,000. Blackwood Sound Community Theater Association Tofino Jazz Festival, $4,000. Blackwood Sound Community Theater Association Tofino Pop, $4,000. Friends of Clackwood Sound, $4,000. Pacific Rim Whale Festival, $3,650. Sorry, I'm getting lost.
You're good.
All right, I haven't repeated anything. Okay, $3,650 in-kind contribution of a one day at the Tofino Community Hall. Surf Canada, $3,000. Tofino Arts Council, $3,175. Tofino Public Market Society, $4,000.
Second.
Second by Councilor Master. Any further comments on the favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Super. Can we just, I just did a call it 2-minute recess. Issue. Ten point three, we have Tonquin Trail Bridge replacement. We have a brief report from. Didn't say brief.
Yeah, so I will be talking about the Tonquin Trail Bridge replacement project. In 2022, Herald Engineering did a condition and load rating assessment. They found that the current bridge in place is insufficient to handle the load of heavy machinery, such as a mini excavator, to get over to do much needed maintenance on the Tonquin Trail on the southern end from this bridge towards Middle Beach. Another finding in the assessment from Herald Engineering was that the northern bridge abutment is starting to sink and is determined to be unsafe. The project design, the new bridge is to be of a steel frame. It'll be steel girdered with steel cross members and then timber decking. There's concrete abutments, and it's going to reduce maintenance costs, be safer for public travel, and allow us to provide the needed maintenance from machinery across that bridge. The project budget, a request for quote was issued on January 9th and closed on January 31st, 2025. There were 9 bids in total. The lowest bid submitted was by Test Right Rigging, and that was $171,294.77. Although the submitted bid was within the $200,000 budget approved by council through the 2024 to 2028 financial plan, the additional project funding is required to support engineering, environmental monitoring, project management, and an adequate contingency. And there was a 25% construction contingency added to this project to manage risks related to unknown geotechnical conditions on the south side of the bridge, because we are unable to get machinery over to conduct that assessment. Proposed increased project budget. The table shows the proposed increase of the budget. It is proposed that the Tonquin Trail replacement project budget of $285,119 be fully funded by Resort Municipality Initiative funding. The construction schedule, the contractor has identified a 3-week construction window to begin at some point beginning of April. The recommendation, staff recommends that the Tonquin Trail Bridge Replacement Project be increased by $85,119 and to be funded by Resort Municipality Initiative funding. And that the increased budget receives early budget approval prior to the adoption of the 2025 to 2029 financial plan.
Excellent. Thank you. Questions for Mr. Staley, Councillor Steer?
Yeah, thank you. And I had two questions, but I'll do one of them. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate that. I just, a quick question, and I think you may have answered it within there. As a 40% increase into the budget of the project from 200 to 285, and I recognize it is funded by RMI, but I am just curious as to on the 71,000 on the engineering project, and you may have answered it. Is that because we weren't able to get over there to make an assessment on that end of it? I'm just, as any 40% increase, I'm just curious as to
a large portion of that is environmental, since we will be doing this outside of the fish window. So we do need an environmental monitor on site. So that has brought up substantial costs for this project. Also to, yes, the geotechnical that isn't required to assess that side of the bridge has brought up costs as well. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think I know the answer to this, but if just for example, if that contingency is not utilized within the project, does that money go back into the pot of RMI to be utilized for whatever projects were budgeted for?
That is correct. Yes.
Excellent. Councillor Sloman, did you have your hand up briefly? Sorry.
Yeah, I did. I think my question was quite similar to Councillor Steer's question. I'm just wondering how we can possibly avoid budget increases like this in the future, if that's possible at all.
Through the chair. There was a request for quote that went out in 2023 that we received no bids on. So there, the price of inflation for materials and products, has gone up since then, which has brought the bids in higher than expected for the entire project budget.
Thank you. Councillor McMaster.
Probably don't know the answer, but with respect to the contingency, which covers geotechnical risk, what about political risk that we're facing? What should I say, tariffs?
Through the chair,
Nothing to me for.
No, I will answer that question. Not to, do too much of a spoiler alert for a special meeting we'll be scheduling with council on March 6th to get into the tariff discussion. We have a report sitting at the senior management table to talk about capital projects, what we may need to change with respect to inflationary projections, and that will come to that meeting. Just as a sort of a blanket risk measurement, we'll be looking at an overall risk management plan for all capital projects. We'll be proposing that to council at that meeting. So with respect to the 25% contingency, it's adequate for this project. We've minimized some of the risk by going out to market prior to what's happening in terms of current political risks and events. So we've managed some of that risk with the current tendering process.
Follow-up question?
Yes, you may.
Is there any way we can avoid the use of wood? Because that's going to be an ongoing maintenance problem. You mentioned it's going to be steel girders and wood cross members. Is there any way we can safely use metal all the time to avoid future maintenance? I know that'll drive up the cost, but
through the chair, yeah, I mean, moving forward, we can definitely look into that. As you stated, it'll definitely drive up the cost. Yeah, I'll work closely with our asset management department, and yeah, I'll take a look.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no questions for you. Is it the Canadian aluminum or is it back and forth? Anyway, can you read the Motion.
Sure. That the Tonquit Trail Bridge Replacement Project budget be increased by $85,119 to be funded by Resort Municipality Initiative funding, and that the increased project budget receives early budget approval prior to the adoption of the 2025 through 2029 financial plan.
Seconded by Councilor McMaster. Any further comments? All in favor? Unopposed, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have come to the Council Grant Standing Committee time of the year. We do have a very brief report from Community Services. Oh, no, we don't. Who was on last year's standing committee? You guys remember? And Sarah?
I think so.
Yeah. Should we switch it up?
I think they did an excellent job.
Yeah.
Really excellent job.
Can I comment?
Absolutely.
I'm on the arts, each committee and the Arts Culture Heritage Committee. And I feel like I'm on a lot of evaluation committees, so I'd really like it to pass the opportunity on to another counselor.
Okay, all right, well, do we have volunteers? It sounds like Councilor McMaster, Councilor Thomas, and who's not here? We're all here. Come on, somebody's gonna step up here.
I just need to.
Councilor Anderson, no, we have three. I have three. Okay, well, we have our three.
I was on it not long.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna go, I'll move from the chair that Councilors Thomas, Anderson, and McMaster be appointed to the 2025 Council Grant Standing Committee to review and recommend council grants against the 2025 council grants pursuant to the District of Tofino Council Grant Policy and the 2025 Council Grant Standing Committee terms reference. Second by Councilor Steer. Any further comments? All in favor? Great, you're off the hook, Councilor Swanley. It's good. I love this committee.
Take three of us to replace Councilor Sloan.
Okay, no unfinished business. So we're moving on to business and issued by council members. We have one. We have a notice of motion from Councilor Steer regarding community alcohol strategy. We have a draft. Councilor Steer, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I think I've discussed this, I think, almost with all the individual councillors, and this is really a continuation of the work that the municipality has done over time. And it really is, through the recommendation of our medical health officer, this is just a continuation of the work that we've done. I don't know if there's anything that would be outstanding for council that we haven't discussed in many other applications. You've been well informed by our medical health officer as well as our RCMP, and just in conversations, and you can see in the discussion portion of it, that reaching out to our medical health officer, as well as our chief of staff, our unit chief at the BCEHS, Rianne, and Owen Smith, our sergeant at the station, local RCMP station, all very supportive of looking at a community strategy. And it's once again through those public safety and health issues that we want to address. So I look to council for support on this. The motion as it reads would be appropriate to read it out now, Dan?
I have a motion right here.
Okay.
You can, let's just go around the table.
Sure.
Questions? Questions for Councilor Steer? I'll jump in. I got a question. How is a municipal alcohol strategy different from a community alcohol strategy? How does that function?
Yeah, so are you like our municipal alcohol policy, or?
We have a municipal alcohol policy.
Yeah.
So how would a municipal alcohol strategy be an extension of that, or how would it actually?
So I think the key is in the title. It's actually not a municipal alcohol strategy. It's a community alcohol strategy, and one of the guiding frameworks around that is that it's a community involved conversation. So it's not just like in a municipal alcohol policy, only is supportive of our municipal properties events specific, in our case, in our municipal alcohol policy, where community alcohol strategy is going to look at all the different stakeholders that are involved, such as the RCMP, such as our medical health, such as our community health promoter that we happen to have in our today. So it's a number of looking at the community involved in that process to look at all of the different potential strategies and initiatives that, once again, is the guiding principle is the public health and safety of alcohol consumption. It's been identified clearly from our medical health officer over a number of years that it is still the #1 public health and safety issue that we face in our region. So this is just a continuation of the work that we've been doing, but at a much more larger community level.
Yeah, you kept on mentioning all these groups like the RCMP and health. I didn't hear you mention the community.
Yeah, well, there's obviously I could have gone on to a list of other community involved. So speaking with the work that we have done on the municipal alcohol policy, which was inclusive of a large number of public engagement, which we reached out to literally from our event planners to our medical health officer, to the list went on. So it was a very involved. Our First Nation communities that are our neighboring communities here who are very much interested in these conversations around how we can mitigate some of the issues around problematic alcohol use in our communities. So I think it is, implied in the conversation around community alcohol strategy. And I was just in those points of discussion, those larger agencies that are directly responsible. For example, our medical health officer for our community policing, our sergeant at the safety station. That was why I included those in that conversation.
How much staff time is this going to take?
That's a good question. Like, what's staff time costs and
I can speak to that as well. So in looking at that, and you can see the financial impacts here, staff time will be necessary. But there are a number of support opportunities, and I'm looking right across the room here, where we have a number of very skilled professionals within our communities. There are also a number of grant opportunities. BC Healthy Communities has a grant specifically for this. So in terms of the financial costs, would be limited to the amount of time that staff would be, they'd be the ones that would actually be drafting the report. But in terms of a lot of the background research and information, there is a tremendous amount of support within our communities and outside agencies that directly do this kind of work and would be lending that support to staff.
it's look to staff? We get comment from staff on this one.
Without being able to fully determine the time commitment and whether there would be what the work plan looks like and whether there would be a budget commitment, it's hard for me to assess at this time. If it was referred to staff or if the motion went forward, we likely come back to council through some of our planning processes to indicate to council what put it in and how it might work from a budget perspective.
Super. All right. Councillor Sloman, don't want to forget you up there. Any comments? You don't have to. I'm just making sure I'm not. Muted.
Again.
Muted. You're muted.
That mute. I feel like this sounds like a reasonable policy or strategy to pull the policies together from what I understand. So I think it sounds good.
Okay. All right, seeing no further comments from council, Councillor Steer, would you like to read your motion?
Sure. That staff be directed to return to council at a future committee of the whole meeting, development options regarding a community alcohol strategy for council's further direction.
Second by Councillor Thomas. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Okay, we're moving on to question period. Ms. Chat.
Here you are. I'll now make an open call for questions. For those in the gallery who wish to speak, please raise your hand. If there is anyone attending online via Zoom that would like to ask a question, you can do so now using the Q&A function. Before asking a question, you will need to state your name, your address, and the agenda item you are speaking to. I will now do a call calling once, calling twice. calling 3 times. We do have someone signed up for questions to allow.
Okay.
I will allow the member of the public to talk.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your time and your service. Could council make it clear to me? I've never seen anything in writing, and I've asked for it in writing myself as to what council is hoping to achieve by getting rid of short-term rentals in Tofino.
That's a good question. I think there's a couple off the top of my head using both our council strategy and the OCP, official community plan.
Yes.
Is to prioritize the availability and affordability of housing among other things. So that would be pretty primary for me. I mean, there's we can look to council. That's just from our strategy and official documents.
May I make one follow-up question?
You can have a follow-up question, yes.
Thank you. Is it believed that somehow the prices are going to come down enough that people in Tofino are going to be able to afford the houses that are currently short-term rentals? And I'll just put a piece of context in here, is that anywhere you live in North America, housing is completely unattainable for most people. So Tofino is not unique in that regard. But what I'm asking is the goal of this of opting in to drive the prices down to what, 50% or 30% of what they are now?
There's a couple goals to addressing short-term rentals. And I might want to point you to the national housing strategy and all the citations that are there.
I've read most of it.
Yeah, and then there's also the BC short-term rental report that came out, the McGill one, and all the citations that are there that does highlight the effects of short-term rentals on both housing, rents, and the cost of housing. So availability, affordability, and also rental. And it does outline some very well-proven strategies to help address those things. And that is where the BC provincial legislation did come out of. And it is also something that council has seen in the past, many councils in the past, and this council see as a way to address short rentals. And it all goes back to, and I think council's all talked about this openly in numerous meetings, is the financialization and commercialization of residential housing is at the heart of a lot of the costs increases in the unavailability and unaffordability of housing, especially in towns like ours. There's also what exists today. There's also the potential of what exists tomorrow. And that we have a finite amount of housing, a finite amount of residential properties. And they certainly, if they remain all open to short-term renting, are very lucrative options for investors, as opposed to people who want to live here and work here. Is that sufficing? Council? I can open up to council. Just kind of reframing some of the things that council has written, discussed, and talked about in public.
I would just also add that I wouldn't use the language "get rid of short-term rentals." Limiting. It's not a blanket get rid of thing. So I just don't want to support that language.
That's an excellent point from Councillor Thomas, is that this is an attempt to address and help manage the proliferation of short-term rentals for the benefit of the community as a whole. Thank you for that. We have another question. I see somebody else's hand up and what are we at for time? We have 10 minutes for a question. I'm sure we've got a couple minutes left.
That's right.
All right, we'll allow Carly Gibson to speak, and please state your name, your address, and the agenda item you're speaking.
Hi, my name is Carly Gibson. I'm speaking about the short-term rentals. We live in Port Alberni, but we own a house on Daphne Place. Yeah, am I good to go?
You're good to go. Yeah, this is a question for council. We may or may not be able to answer, but we'll try.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of more comment. So I just find it interesting that we're talking about getting the opinion.
Carly, sorry. This is the time for questions for council, not comments.
Oh, so when is the time for comments for people who are online?
That was at the beginning for a public comment session. Sorry.
Okay.
Can you make it a question? Can you try to make it a question?
I don't know.
You can make it a question. Give it a go.
Well, okay, sure. I have a couple questions then. So one of my questions is, why are we thinking about making motions to ask district staff on their opinion of opting in when district staff already gave their opinion not to opt in when the last round of discussions?
We are not asking, we have not directed staff to come back with a report on their opinion on whether or not we should opt in.
So we, okay, I guess I misunderstood that. Okay, never mind.
All right, thank you. We have one hand from the floor. How much time we got left?
Just over 8 minutes, 7 minutes.
Well, that's lame.
Maybe she can find a question well, I'm asking my question. Samantha Hackett, 700 Ocean Park Drive. I just had a question for council to consider, but just with the motion that was made to staff of considering ways to protect the privacy and personal information of Tofino residents who are our local business employees when looking at the provincial registry details, which was the motion that was made. As many of these short-term rentals and the businesses that operate them, who they clean them, they do the maintenance, landscaping, etc. For them, they all rely on those short-term rentals as their livelihood. And then of course the staff that they employ, which are our residents. And definitely those staff and employees to be providing their personal information like SIN numbers in order to be registered as the host really jeopardizes their safety and privacy. And I know that the District of Tofino, when we added in the caretaker cottage requirements, that was the priority, was that the residents, the renters were never in a place of their safety and privacy being in jeopardy. So just
sorry, Miss.
Yeah.
Can you make it a question?
Yeah.
Is it a
So
question?
asking council to consider that as part of that motion.
Let's make it a question. Let's go. Can
Can
staff
council?
or can council?
You.
That's good.
Yeah, council consider and prioritize the privacy and personal information of our residents and local business employees.
Okay, it's we'll make it a question here. Let's see if I can find an option to help. I think
And maybe you already are, so
my
maybe your answering is just yes.
My answer probably is that that staff will come back with a very detailed understanding of what the province is requiring, and I very much suspect that that will include a comment on the social insurance number. Now, I would say that the social insurance number is a government ID, and this is a government program, so it's the same social insurance number that somebody would provide for their tax, their BC tax and federal tax. How that is being used maybe will be answered, but
So maybe those would be the two questions then to, can that be clarified through this process? And then also, can the process of how that's obtained be clarified?
I think we'll find that out. Okay. We'll get very good.
Great. Thank you.
That's my my expectation.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we're done with the questions.
Yes, Mayor Longo.
Okay. Then, would somebody like to move us into the closed?
I move that the meeting be closed for public pursuant to sections 91A, C, and I of the community charter to discuss matters relating to personal information about an individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent, employee relations, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that.
Councilor Steer, all in favor?